y prefiero que mis perritos coman carne de estas mujeres a que ellas sigan respirando mi oxígeno. Y mientras yo siga aquí en la tierra, voy a seguir haciendo todo el daño que yo pueda y divirtiéndome de ese daño.
On October 4th of 2018, a couple was pushing a stroller around their neighbourhood in Ecatepec, just outside of Mexico City, when police approached them and placed them under arrest. There wasn't a baby inside the stroller, but a human torso, among other human remains the couple was on their way to dispose of in a nearby lot. Police had just arrested Juan Carlos Hernandez and Patricia Martinez, a couple linked to the disappearances of over 8 women in the area. But the investigation had just begun. Authorities were about to uncover crimes of kidnapping, murder, and even cannibalism. Crimes that would earn Juan Carlos and Patricia the nickname of the Monsters of Ecatepec. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Ecatepec de Morelos is a municipality belonging to the state of Mexico. It's very close to Mexico City and one of the most populated areas surrounding it. However, life at Ecatepec is not as peaceful as its residents would like. Crime and violence have risen in the past few years, especially towards women. According to local data, between 2014 and 2017, nearly 9,000 women were murdered in Mexico. Of those 9,000, over 1,000 happened in Ecatepec. And it's precisely in one of its neighborhoods where our story takes place. Juan Carlos Hernandez was born in 1985. According to his own story, his childhood wasn't very happy. His mother would often take men home while he was there, and even abused him. When he was 10 years old, he fell down the stairs and suffered a severe bump to the head, which would affect him for the rest of his life. He was never very good at school, and later on, he never seemed to be able to keep a job for more than a few weeks. He worked as a waiter, a rubbish collector, a seller, and for a while he also enlisted in the army, but abandoned only after a few months. In 2008, while he was at a restaurant he frequented, he met Patricia Martinez, who worked as a waitress. Patricia was 5 years older than him, and her life had also been a series of challenges. Her family had very little money, and her performance at school was never very good. After being abused by a family member when she was just a girl, she sought validation from men by being submissive, making her an easy target for manipulators. Manipulators like Juan Carlos. Juan Carlos told Patricia he was a hitman for the local mafia. This information is believed to be false, but despite it all, Patricia fell in love with him, and the two began dating. Soon they moved to Ecatepec and had 4 children together. They made a living by selling clothes, phones, food, jewelry, and anything they could find. Their neighbors remember them as being a normal family. But the couple was far from being normal. They had a terrible secret. They had become serial killers. According to what they later told the authorities, their first victim was a 22-year-old woman. They offered her a job as a housekeeper and asked her to hold an interview at their home. When she got there, Juan Carlos abused her and later beheaded her. While this was happening, Patricia waited outside the home with her children. However, a while later, she would be the one to help Juan Carlos dismember the body and even cook part of the remains for their dogs and to consume themselves. When they were done, they disposed of the rest of the body in an empty lot in their neighborhood. After the first woman came the second, then another one, and then another one. And for years they repeated the same choreography. They'd find a local woman on Facebook or on the street and lure her into the house, promising to give her clothes for her children or sell her a new phone. Then, once the woman was in the house, the violence began, and always ended up the same way. The body was dismembered, and part of the remains were given to the dogs or consumed by the family. The last known victim of the couple was a 28-year-old woman who disappeared in September of 2018, along with her 2-month-old baby. Patricia had promised to give her clothes from when her children were babies, but once they got home, Juan Carlos was waiting for her. After killing her, the couple sold the victim's baby to another couple, who would later be identified and arrested. A month after this last kill, Patricia and Juan Carlos would be arrested as well. The disappearance of the last victim gave police the clue to solve the mystery of several disappearances taking place around the same neighborhood. When putting them together, they managed to find patterns in their last steps. They'd all met with a woman who'd promised to sell them clothes. After tracing where the victim's phone had last pinged, they managed to pinpoint a suspicious address, the home of a couple who made a living out of selling clothes. Juan Carlos Hernandez and Patricia Martinez were closely watched for weeks, and on October 4th, 2018, police took action and arrested them while they were pushing a stroller on the street. Police suspected the content of the stroller was far from being a child, and they were right. Hidden under blankets and plastic bags were human remains. As soon as they were questioned, they both confessed to murdering women. However, they didn't seem to agree on the extent of their crimes. While Patricia mentioned they'd killed 10 women, Juan Carlos confessed to at least 20. The couple was disposing of the bodies in an empty lot near their house, in hopes that animals would take care of the rest. When searched, in the lot they found remains of several women, identified by traces of DNA and clothes. But their home was the real crime scene, as well as being the place where the torture took place. They stored the victims' remains in freezers and cement bags, waiting for the best moment to take them to the lot without attracting too much attention. Investigators found DNA belonging to several missing women in the area. It was later discovered that some of the victims' bones were sold to dark magic enthusiasts to use in rituals and ceremonies. However, identifying all the victims proved to be an impossible task. Patricia and Juan Carlos didn't know the details of all the women they'd killed. But the police investigation was also questioned by neighbors. In this news footage, taken only a few days after the arrest, a reporter tells the camera how she's standing outside the lot where several remains were found, and there's no police guarding the crime scene, compromising any evidence that could help identify the victims. In fact, she mentions that there's still what appears to be women's clothing thrown around the lot, and no forensics teams collecting it. That's not the only time neighbors have not been happy with the police work. Some people living in the same building as the Monsters of Ecatepec had complained 6 months prior about a foul smell coming from the drains of the upstairs apartment the two rented. However, nobody ever investigated the cause of the smell, and it's very possible it came from the couple cleaning up after one of their killing sprees. Like we mentioned earlier, Ecatepec is one of the most dangerous municipalities in Mexico, especially for women. Only a handful of police cars patrol the streets daily, and barely any of them venture in during the night. This is why Juan Carlos and Patricia would constantly dump human remains all over the empty lots with nobody raising an eyebrow. None of the remains had ever been found until the investigation began. Luckily for investigators, the couple confessed to killing, torturing, and even selling some of the victims' remains. Patricia admitted that although Juan Carlos was the brains behind the whole operation, she also took part in the crimes. A psychological evaluation of Patricia determined she had a very limited intelligence and was probably participating in the crimes out of fear of being rejected by her husband. This, of course, is no excuse, but it does bring some light into the motive that she had to kill all these women. Juan Carlos, on the other hand, was diagnosed with personality disorder and psychosis. Not only was he proud of what he'd done, but during his interrogation, he told police if he were let out, he would continue doing it. In his own words, he hated women ever since he was a kid and was subjected to all sorts of abuse from his mother and caretaker. He also mentioned his first wife left him, which he points out as another reason why he hates women so much. To this day, nobody knows how many victims have actually been killed by Juan Carlos Hernandez, but it's possible the number is well over 20. The confession and the remains found in the couple's home were enough to charge them with murder, illegal inhumation of human remains, and illegal adoption for the kidnapping and later selling of one of the victims' 2-month-old baby. Some of the remains identified belonged to women who had disappeared over 5 years earlier. This mother finally discovered what happened to her daughter, who mysteriously vanished one day in 2013 while the couple were living right next door. It turns out she had been there all along, but for years her body had just remained unnoticed in an empty lot. Both Patricia and Juan Carlos have received life sentences and will be spending the rest of their lives in prison. Although the Monsters of Ecatepec are now behind bars, their proud attitude towards their crimes, as well as the lack of proper police work conducted over the years, brings very little closure to the families of the victims. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting, and if you did, please like it and subscribe so you don't miss any new videos.